On October 19, 2017, astronomer was reviewing data collected by telescopes when something unusual. The more closely he examined the information, the clearer it. Before him was an object unlike anything science had. An unknown body in the solar system was moving at an enormous 9,000 miles per hour, along a trajectory that clearly not captured by the sun's gravity. It was traveling unclear that it had come from interstellar space. The speed of the high for the sun to have pulled it into its gravitational field. Soon, scientists established the size of this mysterious object comparable to a football field. But the real shock came. It had nothing in common with asteroids or comets known to science, but the object left behind no gas trail or dust trail, which is entirely for comets approaching the sun. As research deepened, the situation became even more inexplicable. Scientists discovered that before it had been detected, while it was to our instruments, it had passed dangerously close to the sun, just miles from its surface, which is closer than Mercury's orbit. And something astonishing happened. The object suddenly accelerated 0.5 times. It reached an incredible speed of 100,500 miles per hour, or 55 miles. It was as if some unknown force had given it a massive The mysterious interstellar visitor was Oumuamua, which in Hawaiian means a scout, a man arrives first from afar. But what exactly this object could not be determined. By the time it was first discovered, it was already away from us. Today, Oumuamua is more than 4 miles from Earth, leaving the solar system behind. And, judging in speed, there's no chance that it'll ever be in our proximity. Its unusual shape, lack of a gas tail, and its arrival from interstellar space left scientists baffled. More and more researchers began to lean toward the hypothesis that Oumuamua might not be an ordinary space object at all, but an artificial spacecraft from an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization. Bold theory. A large-scale project was proposed, Project Lyra. Its mission was to launch a probe to intercept Oumuamua to finally find out what we're dealing with. The interstellar gap. Right after the discovery of Oumuamua, a wave through the scientific community. This object didn't fit into, and no one could say what exactly we had encountered. It challenged space. Astronomers around the world urgently cancelled their own research just to catch a few more signals vanished forever into the darkness of interstellar space. The estimate shortly after its discovery suggested that Oumuamua was about 8 feet long and only 130 feet wide. This cigar-like shape didn't resemble any known celestial body. But later, as new data arrived, scientists at a university in Canada made their own calculations, suggesting it could have been around 380 feet in length, 360 feet, and 62 feet thick, making it than the Statue of Liberty. However, instead of cigar shape, the object might have been flatter, pancake-like in form. But even that shape is very unusual for space objects. It's only been seen in rare cases such as Erekoth, a celestial body beyond Neptune's orbit. Even so, such Oumuamua any less mysterious. Its shape remains extremely and continues to raise questions. We're observing and mysterious, an object hurtling through space at an incredible speed miles per second. That's faster than Voyager 1, a spacecraft ever launched by humans. At such a speed, it could cross the distance between New York and San Francisco in just 2 seconds. This velocity indicated that the object was not gravity, and soon this suspicion was confirmed. It was a stellar visitor. But where exactly had it come from? And more important, was it? The first thing astronomers expected to see as the rapidly receding object was a bright tail of gas and dust. They initially assumed it was a comet, and those behave predictably when under the influence of solar heat, ice and frozen gases begin to evaporate, ejecting dust and gas into space. Form a glowing tail that trails behind the nucleus, reflecting sunlight. Example is Comet Hale-Bopp, whose tail was visible to the naked eye from 1897. But Oumuamua defied conditions. It flew past the sun without leaving any trace of evaporation, no dust, not even the faintest hint of a tail. Its behavior broke all the rules that apply to ordinary comets. Test continued to baffle science. Its shape, trajectory, speed, all pointed to one thing. We were dealing with something unique, unlike any object known to humanity. Tend to grow in the scientific community. The main question was, is an ordinary cosmic body, Or have we, for the first time, encountered terrestrial technology? Was yet to come. It turned out that Oumuamua had accelerated, but had done so in a way that defied understanding its own plan. Scientists determined before its discovery the object had passed dangerously close to the Sun, a million miles from its surface. And it was after this moment, and speed. At its peak, Oumuamua accelerated to 50 seconds, 3.5 times faster than before its flyby. That speed is truly astonishing. It's faster than Voyager 1 is currently traveling. 11th in the Starship rocket, and 250 times faster than This kind of acceleration is typically observed in clouds of dust and water vapor from their tail, give them an additional boost. Already mentioned, Oumuamua showed no signs of such activity, accelerated it. But what? Oumuamua, a spaceship? What if this object isn't what it seemed to be? Years ago, something far more intriguing than a chunk of space flew near Earth. Perhaps a spacecraft created by another civilization. This is the hypothesis put forward in 2021 by Loeb, then chair of Harvard University's astronomy department, along with his colleague. They proposed that the first detected interstellar object is a space probe. The researchers are convinced strange behavior gives every reason to suspect that it might be something true. What intrigued scientists most was the moment effectively accelerated during its pass by the Sun. Sure, could give it a push, but based on calculations, that acceleration was weaker. That's why Avi Loeb and Shmuel Bialy proposed, what if this wasn't just a rock from another star system, but light sail technology? At first glance, the idea sounds, but it's based on real physics. A light sail is a thin structure that can move using the pressure of light. Streams of photons, for example, exert a tiny but constant pressure on the surface of a sail, accelerating it to very high speeds without the need for fuel. If Oumuamua had indeed such an ultra-thin structure capable of radiation pressure, then the solar wind could have given it the extra. According to their calculations, for this to be possible, the sail's thickness 0.3 to 0.9 millimeters, about the thickness. Just imagine an object 380 feet less than a millimeter thick. They may sound wildly, but light sail technology already exists. For example, it was the spacecraft Icaros, the world's first probe to successfully aviation as its propulsion source, which successfully journeyed in 2010. Perhaps Oumuamua was something like that, with a solar sail, designed to accelerate and change course in star systems. And if it truly was an artificially created device, it's highly possible that, in addition to the sail, it had other technological components we can only speculate about for now. But one thing seems like this would need at least a system for scanning its surroundings, communication to transmit data or receive signals from its creator. Bialy and Loeb also conducted calculations to Oumuamua's light sail could withstand a long interstellar journey, the density of interstellar gas and dust, as well as the speed at which they with these particles in space. The result, if Oumuamua really was a device like that, it could have traveled 16,000 light-years from its home star system while remaining intact. That said, the scientists themselves don't definitively claim it is a spacecraft. They simply believe that the possibility exists serious enough not to be dismissed in scientific discourse. If we assume that Oumuamua truly was an artificial object, the ice sail is just one possible version. It might have been a much more advanced probe. For example, an active, unmanned spacecraft study our solar system. And there are reasons to indeed unmanned. Consider this. Oumuamua's speed of 1 light-year in roughly 11 to 11.5 thousand years. Compare that to the distance to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, years away. That would mean the trip would have taken Oumuamua around to 46,000 years. Such journeys are simply impossible, which means that if this was a ship, it was most likely controlled from a program or by someone from afar. However, there's this point of view. Many scientists consider the idea of a possible artificial object to be overly speculative. In their opinion, there's direct evidence to support such bold claims. Scientists Alan Jackson and Steve Desch from Arizona State University own hypothesis about the nature of Oumuamua. They suggest a fragment of frozen nitrogen. This type of substance can be found on Pluto. When the spacecraft New Horizons flew past the dwarf planet, it observed icy plains like Sputnik Planeta, vast frozen nitrogen. The researchers suggest that it could have broken off a chunk of such a surface from a Pluto-like embarked on an interstellar journey. As it approached the sun, the night rate from the heat, creating a kind of jet propulsion that could explain acceleration. Meanwhile, Darrell Seligman of Cornell University and Jennifer Bergner, California, Berkeley, have their own explanation for this mysterious object. According to them, Oumuamua was once an ordinary water orbiting a distant star, but at some point it was ejected into During its long journey through the galaxy, it was exposed to rays, for example, from supernova explosions. These transformed up to a third of its water ice into hydrogen molecules remained trapped inside the ice. Later, when it warmed up, and the accumulated hydrogen started to escape jet streams. This is what gave the object an extra push. Usual behavior, such as the lack of a bright tail like typical comets, the fact that light hydrogen wouldn't generate enough thrust to carry much. As a result, we see strong acceleration without any dust or gas. Other scientists also appear to explain this puzzling object. Some go for even simpler. Karen Meach, an astronomer at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, that the object is simply a very ordinary comet, but with a very low, hence the lack of a tail. And the unusual shape of Oumuamua is not so rare at all. The fact that it seems atypical simply reflects our limited experience. The universe contains a variety of forms and structures, and a cigar-shaped or disc might be much more common than we think. Most of them are likely just too far away for it. Although the majority of the scientific community agrees that Oumuamua is a asteroid or an unusual comet, we still have no definitive confirmation, which means the central question remains open. How can we know what this mysterious interstellar visitor really was? To catch up with Oumuamua. Possible to see or discern Oumuamua even through the most powerful, as the object is rapidly moving away and is extremely small, 3.5 times shorter than the height of the Empire State Building. The object at a distance of billions of miles would be like trying to spot shores of San Francisco across the entire Pacific Ocean, useless. Only the Hubble Space Telescope was able to detect for a few weeks before it completely faded into darkness. But what up with this object and study it up close? The idea certainly sounds possible, but that's exactly the challenge scientists have taken on. As early as October 30th, 2017, just 11 days of Oumuamua, researchers from the Initiative for Interstellar Studies out of Project Lyra, aimed at assessing whether it's possible would send a spacecraft after the interstellar object and study it up close. But is such an ambitious mission even feasible? Engineer Adam Hibbard, a key participant in Project Lyra and the creator of the planetary trajectory software, OITS, used for calculating optimal planetary missions, is convinced. The mission is not just about finding where it is, it's a chance to make a breakthrough in our understanding of the interstellar realm. According to him, the first step is to create a truly capable of withstanding the harsh conditions of deep space. It must get from radiation, as it will need to travel billions of miles, where it's relentless, and can easily disable its scientific instruments. Of course, catching up with Oumuamua is not an easy task. Mission practice, we already know how to achieve extreme speeds, rocket engines, or enormous fuel reserves. Engineers plan to launch a probe on a dizzying journey, using assists as massive cosmic slingshots. One of the processes is a true planetary dance. The probe would launch from Earth, where it would receive its first boost. Then, it would return to our planet's gravity for a second acceleration. The next step would be where the gas giant's immense gravity would give the spacecraft the final pull the interstellar traveler, Oumuamua. The probe would be equipped with chemical propulsion systems that could find extreme and provide additional thrust at the right moments, because chase every mile per second counts. This trick is already in 1979. The Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 space Jupiter's gravity to accelerate dramatically and head towards Saturn. Engineers aim to replicate this maneuver, but this time to catch up with Oumuamua. There's also another, far more daring plan, known as Birth Maneuver. In this scenario, the probe would first travel to reduce its speed and use the giant planet's gravity to change course, as close as physically possible without catastrophic consequences. On the edge of hell, it would receive a massive gravitational boost from additionally ignite its chemical engines to escape the sun's pull. Incredible speeds, head back to Jupiter, using its gravity once again, and finally entering a trajectory to pursue Oumuamua. If everything works out, the spacecraft could accelerate to 74,000 or even up to 163,000 miles per hour. That's 5 miles per second, precisely the speed range needed to catch a mystery object and to do it fast enough. But there's the colossal temperature. Approaching the sun so closely could heat 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt metal. already have a proven solution, the Parker Solar Probe, which in 2020 set a new record by approaching the Sun at just 3.7 million miles to its unique heat shield made of carbon foam, which withstood heat. A similar shield is planned for the probe destined to chase. In fact, engineers have already created a 3D model of this spacecraft. Scientists have not yet made a final decision on which route to the gravity-assist dance involving Earth, Venus, and Jupiter solar flyby. Other, more exotic methods have also been, for instance, laser propulsion, in which a powerful ground-based laser the probe through space, giving it acceleration without a drop of fuel. Mentioned solar sails, lightweight structures that capture the pressure gradually but surely accelerate the spacecraft across the cosmos. For now, these technologies are more experimental than practical, but they are a new era of fast and efficient interstellar travel. Mission to reach Oumuamua, its launch is tentatively scheduled for sometime in 2033. The most realistic scenario at this point involved dance using Venus, Earth, and Jupiter. In this case, the match up with the fast receding Oumuamua in the early 2050s. First time in history come face to face with a messenger from another star. But what if the mission fails? What if the probe is unable to Oumuamua? What if it approaches the object from a distance too far away? Don't forget that this object is extremely small and sends no signals. Spotting it in deep space is possible. There's another risk. The probe could reach its target down in time. In that case, it would simply speed past. It would be our only chance to get close to our elusive target. Scientist Adam Hibbert believes that even in the event of failure, be considered a failure. Even if Oumuamua can't be caught, the probe first spacecraft in history to be purposefully sent beyond the boundaries. The attempt to chase Oumuamua to study the space beyond the solar system, and to explore the universe-solar perspective, which could bring humanity countless benefits. To date, only 2 objects have crossed the heliopause. The influence ends and interstellar space begins. These are Voyager 2, but their journey beyond the solar system was more a matter of luck. Probes, which were designed to study planets, to travel so far, or for... Unlike them, the new probe is being designed from the edge into interstellar space. It will be equipped with state-of-the-art instruments and valuable data about the environment beyond the solar system. Data we just... In that case, the probe would not only have a chance to catch up with Oumuamua of what this object really is, but also to transmit invaluable data of interstellar space. But what exactly do scientists hope the probe does manage to reach Oumuamua? And most researchers believe this mysterious visitor is nothing more than a comet or asteroid. It's assumed to be a dense object composed of metals. It contains no water or ice, and its red likely results from exposure to cosmic rays over millions of years. Once scientists formed a general idea about the composition of Oumuamua, the question, just as important, what kind of journey brought this object? The answer to its true nature might lie not only in, but where it came from. In 2018, attempted to reconstruct its trajectory retrospectively. Calculated that about 1 million years ago, it flew past several stars to the red dwarf HIP 3757. It's possible that it only began there, heading directly towards us. Another that Oumuamua might have come from the Vega star system in the Lyra, about 25 light-years away. So far, astronomers haven't found actually habitable planets in that region, but that doesn't mean they're not there. It's possible that somewhere near Vega, a civilization exists that's responsible of this mysterious object, and all the excitement is stirred up in the sun. Now, Oumuamua is speeding toward the constellation, continuing its strange voyage through space. By the end of 2020, interstellar visitor will reach the outer edge of the Kuiper Belt, and by gate, just 13 years later, it will reach the heliopause, the region influenced by the solar wind, and entering true interstellar. It appeared just as quickly, leaving behind more questions than answers. Presence stirred the scientific community, and now researchers are to test the next such visitor from the depths of space. Agency ESA is preparing a unique mission called Comet Intercept. The goal is to intercept objects arriving from interstellar space. But the main these kinds of guests arrive at incredible speeds, and there's time to prepare and launch spacecraft once it's spotted. Therefore, decision. In 2029, they plan to launch a stakeout space, which will be stationed at the Lagrange point L2, 30,000 miles from Earth. This is a location where the forces of Earth, the Moon, and the Sun balance out, creating an ideal outpost. There, the probe will wait patiently as an interstellar comet appears on the horizon. It will activate these 2 maneuverable satellites that will pinch the target and beam from multiple angles simultaneously. Scientists today believe that Oumuamua is an ordinary cosmic body, most likely an asteroid. Others suggest that we're dealing with technology from another, but we cannot confirm either hypothesis yet. The are far away, and its nature remains cloaked in mystery. The truth seems almost impossible, expensive, risky, and absurd. But it's precisely these kinds of mysteries that fire up the desire to know the truth outweighs all obstacles. And what do you think flew past us in 2017? Spend resources on such missions. Share your opinion in the comment. And now, we invite you to return to the object mentioned at the beginning of the discuss the shape of Oumuamua. We're talking about Arakoth in the Kuiper Belt that also holds many secrets. The Kuiper Belt has millions in it. Some are 100 kilometers wide, and some are really 1,000 kilometers in diameter. So what are they? Belt objects, or trans-Neptunian objects, are the remnants of Earth of our solar system that happened about 4.5 billion years. It's a huge volume of space, as you can imagine. While we had just discussion of this region, we've already found about 2,000 Kuiper Belt objects. Some of them raise more questions than they give answers. The New Horizons probe reached the dark and mysterious Kuiper. As the probe was moving past Pluto and nearing the belt, it discovered a strange trajectory. It was given the name Aron, 133 kilometers in diameter, while researchers were looking at it to grow brighter and then dim in a precise rhythm, suggesting most objects in the belt are made of ice and rock, but made of something different. Astronomers were right, but Aron so fast, about once every 5.5 hours, that if it was made of, it should have torn itself apart from the centrifugal force alone. But scientists started to wonder, what is it, and what's it made of? Time to get in for a closer look. So NASA steered the New Horizons probe, but something weird happened as the probe approached Pluto. On indications were suddenly lost, as if something was jamming its signal. Moved away from Aron, communications were again restored, which computer glitch. But NASA was prevented from finding out the truth about the spinning object. Some researchers suggested that the spinning is creating gravity in the middle of Aron, and it could be some giant ship you've seen in science fiction films. However, the gravity would not be enough, but for some other form of alien life, it could be. Could it be an interstellar alien craft of some kind, like Oumuamua to be? Most likely not. But there is always a slim chance. In species, and you wanted to get a look at the strange creatures known as human, belt would be the perfect place to hide. Perhaps in the future, we'll get another dose and figure out exactly what Aron is. Still, next we know a lot about. In 2014, astronomers discovered a celestial body in the outer reaches of our solar system. It's estimated some 2 kilometers across, and what's truly interesting is its shape. No man. In fact, scientists have long struggled to understand how it formed. The object was named Arakoth, and has been visited by a space probe in 2019. It's become the most distant we ever examined at such a close distance. Arakoth is an example of a primitive object in the solar system, so you may think there's nothing interesting ever. For scientists, flying past Arakoth was as thrilling as up close. So what's so special about it? One theory, our solar system formed from a dense cloud of space dust and gas material as gravity pulled it together, transformed into the planetary system. There's just a tiny gap here. We don't know what happened in. And because the average Kuiper Belt temperature is about -degrees Fahrenheit or -220 degrees Celsius, KBOs are observed. So they can fill in those gaps, and Arakoth is one of the pieces. In studying this weird-shaped flat object, scientists are uncovering how space bodies in our solar system were formed. A binary object, meaning it consists of two parts stuck together. Since these lobes differ in color, it could indicate they have once been that formed from dust in the primordial cloud over 4. But how did they come together without seriously damaging each other? Collisions that took place billions of years ago weren't that fast and violent. In the case of this KBO, gravity made the two separate parts slowly each other and bind together in a slight collision. Each has an intriguing formation story, and if you'd like to see a video about it and our solar system, let us know in the comments. Still, only mind-boggling object the Kuiper Belt has to offer. The next object for its size at 650 kilometers, or its shape, or strange, is this object's density that's 18% less, which means it can easily float. The object has the name 2025, and its low density is a big mystery. One is the celestial body's high porosity, or gaps in its structure. It's commonly seen in objects less than 350 kilometers in diameter. Objects are too massive for such a low porosity because the force of gravity material leaving no room for these gaps. Is this Kuiper Beltic oddity something that will change planetary formation theories? Complicated. Whatever the reason, we've got to learn more about average density to define it for sure. Another intriguing object is almost the size of UX-25, and it's got a lot of stories attached. This one's a planetoid, a minor planet that consists of rock and dust. It's about 1,300 kilometers wide, but scientists speculate twice its size sometime in the past. It's possible that this collision with Pluto and lost its material as a result. What astronomers their heads around is why this object's temperature has risen from about -degrees Fahrenheit to -260 degrees Fahrenheit. Millions did something or someone heat it up. We don't know yet. The belt object is called Oumuamua, and throughout the last several scientists have found water ice present on its surface. What's more, been an ocean on this planetoid in the past, and that's not all we know about Oumuamua. It also has a bright surface, which could indicate the KBO may have had activity, such as cryovolcanoes not so long ago. Volcanoes are, but cryovolcanoes are something different, although they both, the one with the weird name, erupts ice chunks, water, methane, instead of magma and ash. Quite a breathtaking view, as you can imagine. Probably witness this phenomenon in the future, but there's no planned mission to Oumuamua. But if there will be one, we'll make sure to tell you about it. There's also a space body outside the Kuiper Belt, but it's still worth mentioning. As had discovered and observed it, the object raised tons of questions about its mysterious composition. We're used to thinking that the majority of our solar system are made of ice. As a result, they're usually either white. However, what we see with this object is quite different, because it's nearly Mars. Another mystery is how oddly this space body moves. It isn't like anything we've seen before. It's called Sedna, and it moves billion kilometers to the center of our solar system. Then Sedna drifts 135 billion kilometers. It's such a great distance, 11,000 years to make a full circle. Other celestial bodies is thought to be a part of a collective gravity. These objects orbit another object, like a binary star. They pull and it affects their orbits. One mind-blowing suggestion is, and a few other space objects could have been the reason for the extinction of the dinosaurs. As the orbit of these objects fluctuates, they can shoot nearby system, and even towards Earth. Since Sedna swings back, it seems there's some unforeseen force that pulls on Sedna. The force is the hypothetical Planet 9, located far beyond the Kuiper Belt, rated to be about 5 to 6 times the size of our planet. Found yet, there's the theory it could be an alien imposter that came from a... Other scientists suggest it's an ancient black hole. Planet 9 is supposedly hiding somewhere in our solar system, and it's because of the bright row of stars in our Milky Way. However, it may be closer and brighter than we think, and if it's brighter detected, if found, we could stumble upon a mega-Earth mini Neptune. So how do we find it? Well, scientists using different telescopes to scan the section of the sky where Planet 9 could be. But, however, will be the Vera Rubin Observatory, equipped with a 4-meter telescope. When completed in 2023, they're repeatedly scanning about 2/3 of the sky, looking for everything from the mysterious Planet 9. If we discover it one day, it'll become that it's found in the last 200 years. There are also quite Neptunian objects out there, and some of them are so big they're called... One of the biggest Kuiper Belt objects ever discovered is also the tallest body in the solar system, and there are hundreds of thousands of space... Although this TNO is nearly 46 astronomical years, the brightest object in the Kuiper Belt after Pluto. In fact, the night was one of the reasons Pluto was reclassified as a dwarf planet. The belt object is called Makemake, and scientists will strike it as bright, while its moon, MK2, is as black as charcoal. So weird is they expected it to have an atmosphere, but it doesn't have one. It's quite cold, about -400 degrees Fahrenheit or -2 Celsius, and these two factors make life impossible there. So planned flyby missions to Makemake. Nearly every object belt has its mysteries, and the next one has got a couple of them. It's known for its strange shape, 2 moons, and an odd rotation. The most distant space body that has rings around it, and we don't know. The object's name is Oumuamua, and it's the 3rd closest dwarf. The weird shape of this KBO resembles a rugby ball, similar to filled with water, and it kind of flattens. This object's elongated shape it was spinning through space. As a result, Oumuamua's day lasts 9 Earth hours, which is also one of the shortest days in the entire... If you lived on Oumuamua for 1 year, 1 day equals 4 hours, and that to a 24-hour Earth day, you'd be 283 years old. But while most of this object is rock, its outer layer is thought to be the same ice you find when you open your freezer. However, there's also on its surface that may be rich in minerals, but we're not sure about the origin yet. Perhaps it could be something quite different from what scientists be, even a sign of extraterrestrial life. Given we discover in space, it's possible that we might find alien technology. The Galileo project, launched in 2021, is going to try and find artifacts in space and here on Earth. And while the chances of finding it are small, it could become the breakthrough we've been waiting for since space rocket. Even if the project fails to detect such signs and eye-opening explanations for Oumuamua and UFOs, Im claimed it would make all discoveries publicly available. So will definitely let you